Hi, my name's Todd McEwen. I'm a senior software engineer on AB Suite, and today I'll be taking you through a great new feature of the AB Suite 7.0 release, ExportAs. I'll firstly run through a few slides, providing an overview of the feature before we dive in with some demos. Finally, I'll touch on some current restrictions and limitations. As you would be aware, AB Suite has supported the ability to export changes from a higher IC to a lower IC for some time, as long as it's within the same major AB Suite release. This provides the ability, in a typical dev test prod configuration, dev can be upgraded to the latest IC, 5.0.1047, whilst test and prod remain on a previous IC, 1046. Using this approach, changes can still flow from dev to prod, whilst also allowing a window of time for the application to be tested with the latest IC in dev before upgrading production. This increases confidence and reduces risk by providing a significant window of time to allow critical testing to be done whilst maintaining a continuity of development during an environment upgrade to a new IC. However, when it came to upgrading an environment to a new release, for example, 5.0 to 6.1, due to internal schema changes in the model to support new features and enhancements, an application was unable to be exported from a higher release to a lower release. That meant the IC upgrade process we discussed previously of upgrading dev first and then production after testing had completed was unavailable. Either environments had to be duplicated to allow parallel testing, or all environments had to be upgraded together, test and prod along with dev. This either impacted development, as changes would need to be minimized during this upgrade test period, or pressured the testing timeline to use a smaller window so as not to impact development before going live into production. So we've listened to customer feedback and have expanded the capability to phase an AB Suite environment upgrade. AB Suite 7.0 provides the ability to not only export from a higher IC and import to a lower IC, but to export from a higher release and import into a lower release. That is, from AB Suite 7.0, changes to an application can be exported and imported back into 6.1. That means dev can be upgraded to 7.0, whilst test and prod remain on 6.1. As with the IC upgrade process, critical changes can still flow from dev to prod, whilst again allowing a window of time for the application to be tested with the latest release before production is upgraded. How is this achieved, you might be asking? Using the new ExportAs feature in the AB Suite 7.0 release. ExportAs, as the name suggests, provides the ability to export an application on a newer release of AB Suite as a file that is import compatible with the previous release. That is, an application that has been upgraded to 7.0 will have the ability to port changes back to 6.1 using ExportAs. To achieve this, the ExportAs utility leverages the public model file, or P model file. Filters and transformations are applied during export to produce a valid 6.1 P model file that can then simply be imported into 6.1 using the model importer. I'll now show a couple of demos on how this process works. In this first demo, I'll step through the process of establishing models to be used for ExportAs. This is a simple process of exporting a 6.1 application and importing it into 7.0, then exporting that 7.0 application as a 6.1 P model file and importing it into a new 6.1 model database. The reason for this is that we introduce some new types with new IDs during the import into 7.0. So just to ensure that these new elements are synchronized between 7.0 and 6.1, we need to complete a cycle exporting from 6.1 to 7.0 and then exporting as back to 6.1 into that new model database. I'll now show this with a small application I've created. First, I'll follow the normal process of exporting an application. File, export, select the name, and export. Once that's complete, we'll copy it over and import into 7.0. In 7.0 now, I've fired up the import utility. I'll specify a new name for the database. Select the file from 6.1 and click OK to start the import process. This will bring over our 6.1 application into 7.0. See the progress there, importing and complete. OK on that dialog. And now we'll create a new project and connect up to our 7.0 application. Once the new project wizard's finished, we'll check out the application. So here we have it, a segment of our classes, types, and screen. Great. What I'm showing on screen now is a side-by-side comparison. 6.1 on the right, 7.0 on the left. As you can see, the applications are very similar, as you'd expect. One difference I'd like to highlight is that the primitive types under the board column has been added with a new type, cells T. This is due to pulling out of the type where we have one attribute that is instancing another attribute. In our case, row 1 was instancing cells, both attributes. So what we've done on upgrade is to extract the type, which is a string of length 1, and set the template of each of these elements to that type. Whilst the structure is slightly different in the modeled application, the runtime application behaves exactly the same between 7.0 and 6.1. So now we want to complete the cycle to ensure those newly added types, in our case cells _T, are reflected back into 6.1. So we have a synchronization between all the elements in 7.0 and ensure that they also exist in 6.1. I'll bring up my command prompt, and now we will just simply execute an export as -m for our model of connect 4. Enter. And as simple as that, this will create an extract in the form of a pmodel file that's in a 6.1 format. So the 6.1 importer can understand it and import it successfully. So I'll just copy that over now, and we'll walk through the import there. Over in our 6.1 environment now, I'll create a new project and database that we can import the 7.0 application that was exported as 6.1. I'll call it connect 4 EAS for export as, and create it with all the defaults. We've just got Windows, so we'll remove MCP, next, finish. This will create a new database, and this will be the target for our pmodel import. Okay, great. That's finished now. So I'll just close him down. And we can then start our import of this 7.0 exported as 6.1 application. There's our P model. And we'll kick off the import. It'll fire off the progress and import an application, including those new types, so that we create this loosely coupled synchronization between the applications in 6.1 and 7.0. We aim behind that, and the reason behind that is that we want the two environments from the beginning to have all the goods, to have all the elements, so that the synchronization, when changes are ported back, only requires the elements that have been modified. So we'll just confirm that's happened now by opening up our project, and we'll go through our class view again, create our classes, our types, our screens there. And if we go and have a look, we've got our board column with the primitive types, and there's our string definition for the cells type. Great. We've now got that synchronization between 6.1 and 7.0 to allow changes to be ported back. The final step now, our application structure is all present in 6.1 from our 7.0 model database. Next, we'll apply the configurations from the original 6.1 model to the newly created model from the ExportAs P model file. That's a simple matter of running our import from the command line, specifying our ExportAs created database, using our original model file, just bringing in the configurations. I'll execute that now. It'll take a couple of moments, and then we'll see the dialog. And as it's the configurations, they'll be applied quickly. Great, finished. Now we'll open up our project again. And then it'll just be a matter of creating our new solution configuration to match our original prod configuration. And as we can see, configuration properties, they've all been brought in. The deployable applications database. Great. So that concludes the first demonstration. We now have a 7.0 application created from our 6.1 model file, exported as back into 6.1 to bring over those newly created types, our cells T here, our type that's been pulled out, and we have all the elements from 7.0 in 6.1. We're now ready to port some changes back, and I'll cover that in the next demo. This second demo, I'll demonstrate how simple it is to port changes back from 7.0 to 6.1 now that we have environments synchronized for ExportAs. During the break, I've created a small report, fastest winners, with some frames and just some logic to output the fastest winners by date. To export as these changes to simulate what it would be to add a new report in production, develop it, in 7.0 with all the great new tools there, and then to port that report back into 6.1 with ExportAs, it's a simple matter of going back to our command line, ExportAs -m, our model database, specifying our file, and then we don't want to export the entire application this time. So we want to make sure that we use a fully qualified name to export just the report that we're interested in porting back, which is Connect 4, our segment, and our report fastest winners, and enter. So as I mentioned, this will just export the report into our P model file. Great, that's complete. And I can now take this back to 6.1. I've copied across the P model file, opened up our 6.1 model database, Connect 4 EAS, and now it's a simple matter of doing an import of that P model file. I'll open up the import wizard. I'll select the file. Fastest winners, that's our report. Okay. And the same as our import process that you'll be familiar with. The report is imported. There we have it. The report, fastest winners, with our frames and our method, all ready to deploy and run. As simple as that. As you can see, ExportAs is a simple yet powerful utility that can greatly assist with environment upgrades. Testing of the application can be executed on 7.0 in that dev environment. Developers can continue to work using the latest features of AB Suite while still allowing critical changes to be ported back to 6.1 production during this window. Lastly, I'd like to cover requirements, support, and limitations. ExportAs will require a valid 7.0 P model license. It will support ClearPath MCP and Windows applications. That is 7.0 Advanced to 6.1 Classic. XML or client framework applications are not supported. The target application must be running IC 6.1 1026 or more recent. Obviously, new 7.0 features are not supported by ExportAs. For example, DMS2 field level encryption and internal persistent blobs. Lastly, as I mentioned earlier, configurations are not supported, though they can still be applied manually, as they are today. For a more comprehensive list, please consult the ExportAs release documentation in the Developer User Guide. Thanks for your time.